Introduce yourself, please.
Yes, I'm Laura Peticolas, and I work at the Space Sciences Laboratory. I'm a physicist by training, and I direct the education group here at the Space Sciences Lab. And our education name is Multiverse.
So what made you decide you want to be a physicist?
So I always loved nature. I loved taking walks in the woods, and I love thinking about, what in the world is there that we can't see. Right? So we can see all these things, but maybe there's stuff we can't see. And how do we know? And how do we find that out? And then as I was taking science classes, I was like, hey, this is how you find out. And in 6th grade, so when I was pretty little, I had this teacher who came in, and a substitute teacher, and he came in and he had all these NASA things and taught us all these. And I turned to my friend and I said, I'm going to be an astronomer. And so then I went to middle school and got a lot of support and took physics and astronomy and had a really good time, and that started my path.
Oh, so you had a particular teacher who wasn't even the teacher, a substitute who came in, who kind of lit the spark for it.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. And after high school, what college did you go to?
I went to the University of Oregon in Eugene.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and you studied astronomy there?
I did. I went in high school, I took a career development class, and so in the aptitude section, sure enough, astronomy showed up. So I was like, yay! But to do well in that class, you had to go interview people who were in the profession that you wanted to be in. Mm-hmm. So I went to astronomers and actually interviewed them, which was very intimidating.
Yeah.
But one of the astronomers said, well, you should study physics first, because physics is the basis of astronomy. And then the next astronomer said, you shouldn't study physics at all because women can't do physics.
Said that to you?
Yes.
Wow.
And he said, you're just going to disappoint yourself. And then he goes, but if you want to, you could try. So I got my physics degree, so boo on him.
Yes. That is amazing. Never let anyone tell you and not.
Exactly.
Crazy.
I agree with that. And then the last guy I interviewed said, do you like math? And I said, oh yeah, I love math. Like I used to do little math problems and stuff. And he said, good, that's all I do all day. So I was like, okay. So what I did is I studied physics in college because I was following, that was a very influential moment because It was like these 3 people who, gave me their advice. One, I decided to rebel against because I had a lot of good support around me. But they could have been devastating, I think, that moment. But luckily the other 2 were like, yeah, you should do it. So so I basically got a math and physics degree in undergraduate. So my graduate degree is in physics. Mm-hmm. And I did some really cool things, but for my actual degree, so what was interesting is that I was studying something very specific for my degree, but then I also got to play with some of the other groups. Mm-hmm. So what I was studying was how the electrons kind of propagate through the atmosphere to make the light. Oh, wow. So just like a fluorescent light bulb, basically the electricity shoots electrons through the gas up there and makes it glow. Mm-hmm. That's what happens with the aurora borealis. And so I created a computer program that studied that, took the physics equations and turned that into something on my computer that I could study. So the computer became my lab space. And then I was in Alaska, so I could go out and compare what I was finding on the computer with what was happening outside.
That's cool.
So it was really cool. And then someone on my advisory team got some money to put cameras on board an airplane and then fly under the aurora. So I also got to install cameras, with tools and bolts and into this big jet airplane.
Yeah.
And then there's a satellite orbiting over the poles, and we knew when that satellite was going to be at a certain point. And so we took this jet airplane, and the pilot would take us out and like sometimes have to do these 6G turns to get under the aurora. So we were in the airplane, the aurora was here, and then the satellite was out here. And so we were trying to find out what the satellite's seeing about the particles, the electrons making the aurora, and what we could see with the cameras, so that we could understand what makes the aurora look the way it does. That was the big question. So one of the reasons I was excited to come here is, remember the satellite I was telling you about? So the folks who put together the scientific instruments for that satellite are located here at this lab. And so I had already been working with some of the data that was coming from that satellite and kind of knew their system. And so I came here to then work more with the satellite data. And then I had all the camera data. So I kind of continued some of the work that I did when I was there. And then while I was doing that, some of the folks who were studying Mars and Mars's atmosphere heard my talks, and they said, you know, that might be you might have aurora on Mars, and why don't you come and look at the data we have and start looking at that? So I did also some research on the Mars atmosphere. And then I also was really interested in education, and there's an education group here at the lab, and so I started working with them too, and doing teacher workshops and reviewing their websites for, you know, when the aurora content is correct and stuff like that.
Could you tell me more about the educational concept that you guys are doing here?
Yeah, so now I'm actually the director of our group, and we have about 12 people that work here just in education stuff. So our main goal is really to help people see that in some way we're all scientists, and we're all, you know, it's kind of that blue dot, like we're all on this planet, right? And we're all, and because of that, we talk about how we're all under the same sky. And so we really want people to engage with science from their own perspective and their own community and their own, you know, the way they see things in life. And so we do a whole bunch of different programming kind of around that. But we also want people to explore what is science and how do we do science here at the Space Sciences Lab, and what does that look like, and what does it take into consideration? For the younger kids, we have kind of family days that we bring people in, but typically we work with the teachers of the younger kids. And help them, because they know better how to interact with the younger children. And we have the space science content, right? So they kind of know. So it's kind of one of our philosophies is we work with the people who know how to engage that audience.
Right.
And then we come with the knowledge of scientific practices and, you know, how that works in space and building satellites and rockets and stuff like that.
So if there was a young girl interested in going into physics, but they didn't really know about going into physics, what would you tell them about becoming a physicist, or how to become a physicist?
You know, for me, the thing that's helped the most is there's been two things. One is just like there'll always be two voices that you hear throughout your journey in life, right? You'll hear people say, you can't do it, and you'll hear people say, of course you can. And I think what really helped me was to start blocking out the you can't do it and amplifying the of course you can, and making that, you know, going to places on the internet where it's positive and inspirational and of course you can, you know, because life's hard and it's not an easy, you know, whatever path you take is hard. And that's the same with physics and math, and, you know, with art it's hard, and with, you know, like every path you take has these challenges. But I think the advice I would give is find people who support you and want you to succeed, and work for them, hang out with them, do things for them, you know, so that you get that. And because I had that here at the Space Sciences Lab, you know, with the education group, there were two astrophysicists running it who were women. And they were able to they were always telling me, yeah, of course you can. They helped me get raises, and they kind of taught me how do I negotiate a good raise for myself, you know, and instead of, oh, no, it's okay, I don't need that much money, you know, which is my inclination is to say those things. But they were like, of course you need, look at this salary and this salary. Like, you don't want to make more or less than this guy, do you? I was like, no. They're like, of course, so you got to ask for it, you know. So they really mentored me. Like, those mentors are so important. And sometimes you have to really look hard to find them, you know. So I think that's one. And then also there's some great stuff on the internet. Like, you can let the internet mentor you if you stay away from the, you know, bad stuff and the stuff that says things are nasty and awful, and you go towards the really positive stuff.